Yes, it's Round the Table, your favourite slow TV radio podcast from the meeting point for students of English, not only in Bilbao but throughout the world. It's episode 97, and in this week's programme we are discussing the topic of Socialish. Socialish, I hear you say? Yes, well, we have socialist, we have socialism, and I invented the word socialish. So don't look in the dictionary because it's not there. It's the idea that everybody has a little bit of socialism within them. We all like to care about our fellow humans, I think, and our fellow citizens. So coming up in this programme, we're going to look at some what's the difference questions. We have a typical mistake, some interesting facts, and an interesting word. And of course, we have our celebrity guest speaker. So let's begin with some what's the difference. So first off, we have a few easy ones here for you. You should know the difference between these. The first two are easily confused, especially with regard to the spelling of these words. The first word is college, which is a place you go to study. It's not the same as the Spanish word, okay? You're going to go there when you're about 16 years old, maybe between 16 and 18. So it's a form of higher education. That is pronounced college. The next word is colleague. Colleague is a workmate. It's a more formal word for workmate, of course, because it looks like a French word, which makes it more formal. Most of us will talk about workmates. The next pair is a game and a play. A lot of people misuse the word play when we use it as a noun. A game. Football, rugby, any type of sport is a game. Also we have board games, so chess, Monopoly, these are games. Things that children do in their free time. When they're running around, they play games. So that is the noun. Of course, with that noun game, we will use the verb play. You play a game. But when we use a play as a noun, it's usually referring to something in the theatre. So Macbeth is a play. An Inspector Calls is a play. And it's a very interesting play, and we will be discussing that in the meeting point on June the 12th. So don't forget, read the play Inspector Calls and come to the meeting. So that is a play. Occasionally, when talking about sport, you can refer to a play when it's a part of a set piece, as we might say. Some sequence of events within the game is sometimes referred to as a play, but it's very specific and it's something that the sports commentators might use. But generally, most normal people refer to Macbeth and Inspector Calls as a play. Win and beat. You win the game, or the money, or the prize, the trophy, but you beat the other team. You beat the opposition. Next, heat and hot. It's been a very hot week this week. A lot of people have suffered with the heat. So heat is the noun and hot is the adjective. A lot of people get these two mixed up. Here are some more. These are a little bit more complicated. Advice and warning. Advice is telling someone what you would recommend. Warning is more negative. It's talking about a danger, really, like don't touch the electric pylon. Don't stand too close to the edge of the cliff. Don't go swimming at this time of day. It's very dangerous, etc. Those are warnings telling you not to do something because it's dangerous. The next pair, lifeguard, bodyguard. What's the difference there? Well, first thing to notice is the pronunciation of guard. that part of the word. It's guard with a hard G at the beginning. A lifeguard is the one either on the beach or by the swimming pool. He's going to take you out of the water when you're in trouble. That is the lifeguard. A bodyguard is like a security person that goes around with a famous person, like a politician, and they protect them from crazy people or just the general public who are not happy with the work they've been doing. Compromise and commitment. Now, a lot of people get confused between these two. Compromise in English is not the same as it is in Spanish. Compromise, maybe I've explained this before, is when you find something that keeps both parties happy. And when I say parties, I mean the two sides in an agreement. The two sides need to have something that pleases both of them, but is not perfect for either. So let's say you want to go to the theatre, I want to stay in and watch a video or DVD or whatever. They don't do that these days, do they? Watch something on HBO, and in the end we decide to go to the cinema. Okay, I'm happy I'm watching a film, you're going out, you're not quite going to the theatre, but it's something similar. So that's a compromise. It's sort of in between the two options and we're both semi-happy. A commitment is when you promise to do something. You can commit yourself. If you sign up at the meeting point, you sign up for a whole trimester. You are committing yourself to that course. Or you get married, you're making a commitment to your partner that you will spend the rest of your life with that person. So that is a commitment. It's sort of promising something. Subsidized, we were talking about schools and education systems. Subsided, completely different. Looks a very similar word, but it's completely different. Subsidized is when there is financial support from the government paying for a facility like an education system. It's not completely private. The parents might pay something towards the education system, but a lot of money comes from the government. That is called subsidized. Subsided, to subside, is when the ground underneath a building gives way, collapses, and then the building sort of cracks or maybe collapses as well. So imagine around here we've got quite a lot of mining. There's lots of holes in the ground. You might build a house on top of an old mine, and you might find after a few years that the ground starts to move under the building, and it's very problematic. So subsided, subside, subsidence. That's a completely different word to subsidized. Runner-up, underdog. These both come from sporting discussions. The runner-up is the person in second place. So if you have the cup final, you have the champion, okay? The team that wins the trophy is the champion. The second place one, the team that got to the final but did not win in the final, they're called the runners-up. And if you want to make it plural, the S goes on runner. So runner-up, runners-up. And the underdog is the small team that is competing against the big team. So when Barcelona play Baracaldo, everybody wants the underdog to win. We'd like Baracaldo to beat Barcelona. So that is called the underdog. And if you imagine two dogs fighting, there's always a little one lying on his back on the floor. That's the underdog. That's where that comes from. So that is the small team that is competing against the big team. And if they win, if the small team wins, they are always referred to as the giant killers in the press the next day. The giant killers. Okay, let's move on to a typical mistake. This word concentrate. Concentrate, of course, is to focus your attention on something. But it's also another thing, which is to reduce something down by removing all the liquid. Now, the reason this causes problems is because quite often we'll use pairs of adjectives in different ways, such as interesting and interested. Interesting is describing the book or the film, and interested would be describing the way you feel about it. I am interested in history. I am interested in politics. And the same can be applied to exciting, excited. The crowd were very excited because the game was very exciting. So that is the normal rule when you have a pair of verbs, one ending in the ing, one ending in the ed. The ed is the feeling it gives you, and the ing is the creator of the feeling. Unfortunately, concentrate doesn't work in the same way. Okay? Normally we would just use it as a continuous form of the verb. Don't use it as an adjective. If you are concentrating, okay, you're reading a book and you're focusing on the information in the book, don't say I am concentrated. Say I am concentrating. That's the continuous form of the verb, it's not the adjective. If you are concentrated, you've had all the water removed. Okay? So it doesn't follow the normal pattern, and that's why it's often confusing. So be careful with concentrating and concentrated. It doesn't follow the normal pattern. Okay, let's move on to something else that I found quite interesting. A trillion. I heard in the news this week that somebody is going to be the first trillionaire. Good for them. It's good to have lots of money, but how much is a trillion? Who needs a trillion? You can't spend it, can you? A trillion is 1,000 billion, and a billion is 1,000 million, at least when we're talking about these people with lots of money. Now, there's the European method and the American method. And a lot of people would use the word billion when they're referring to a million. But in America, they do it in multiples of 1,000. So their billion is not the same as the European one. Apparently they got it from a French system that some scientific people used in France. They changed the meaning of billion, and then everybody in France forgot about it and they went back to the original way of doing things. But the Americans continued. In Britain we changed in the early 1970s to make us more compatible with the American way of doing things because of the banking systems and finance and all that stuff. So the billion has 9 zeros, and then the trillion has 12. Okay, this American system is called the short scale, apparently. Now, here's an interesting question. If we started counting to a trillion, we can begin now if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we'll stop. Okay, because if we start counting to a trillion, it will take us 31,700 years to get to 1 trillion. So I don't think we'll be counting up to a trillion. And here's another strange thing. If you had $1 trillion, right, this is a big sum of money, $1 trillion. If you spent $1 million every day, it would take you 2,740 years to spend your trillion. That is a ridiculous amount of money. Is he happy? I ask. I refer you back to last week's conversation. Another bit of investigation I did. There's a common myth that United States prisons are privately run. I looked into it. Apparently it's only about 8% of the prisons in America. I thought it was like 90% or 95%, but apparently only 8%. There are some states like Montana where it's about 50% are privately run, but over the whole of the United States, it's only about 8%. If we talk about the ice facilities, which are big in the news at the moment, that's 90% of those are private enterprises, which is quite alarming, I think. Now let's have a look at an interesting word. There is this word bear. I know what you're thinking, it's an animal. Yes, there's also a verb, to bear, which means to carry, and this is the interesting word we're looking at, not the animal. So bear means carry, support, or sometimes to endure. So back to America again, they often talk about the right to bear arms. The right to bear arms. That means bear as in carry and arms as in guns. Okay, not the arms that are on either side of your body. You don't have the arms of a bear. That's a different thing. We also talk about bearing fruit. If you have a tree, a fruit tree, it bears fruit. Also, we can use that phrase metaphorically, like you might have a project, and if the results of your project are very favourable, you would say it bears fruit. Or if the project doesn't work out, it doesn't bear fruit. You can also bear responsibility for something, like carry the responsibility. You can bear a weight, like to carry or support a weight. This is why you have a load-bearing wall. If you live in a big block of flats, you can probably find that you can remove lots of the walls because they're not really necessary. They just divide the rooms up because they don't really support anything structurally, so they're not load-bearing. And this is also why we say I can't bear it, meaning I can't stand, I cannot support this situation. So I can't bear it means the same thing. It's that idea of carrying. So on from that bear as a verb, there is also a noun, which is a burden. Burden. This is the noun related to bear. So, if you have to carry something heavy, it's a burden. We also have a beast of burden, which is an animal which is used for carrying things, like a donkey or a camel. Those are beasts of burden. You can also have a more metaphorical burden in your life. Something that you have to endure, some serious responsibility. Maybe it's looking after a sick relative for many years. This might be a burden. Or you might have some kind of disability that would be a burden on your life. Born, B-O-R-N-E, with the E on the end, is the past participle of the verb to bear. So she has borne many difficulties. There is another born without an E on the end. Carried into life, brought forth. So he was born in Madrid. He was born means he was carried into life. So this verb to be born, and we always use it in the passive. You can't say I borned. It's always I was born, in a passive sense, because your mother actually does the work. So that born without the E is related to the past participle with the E. And then of course we have birth, which is related to that word burden. It's the act of bearing a child. You bear children. So there you go. We have bear, burden, born, and another born, and then birth. An interesting word, I think you'll agree. Now let's have our celebrity guest speaker on the topic of Socialish.
Socialish is the question of the week. many people reject political labels and would never describe themselves as socialists. Even so, most believe that society has a duty to protect weaker citizens and support those facing hardship. For most people in Europe, a public healthcare system is considered a fundamental part of a civilized society, while many in the United States view it as dangerously close to communism. Some may complain about waiting lists and high taxes, but few Europeans would accept medical treatment being available only to the wealthy. Education produces similar contradictions. Families who spend large amounts on private schools still contribute through taxes toward public education, because most accept that every child deserves opportunities and access to learning. Some see unemployment benefits as an essential safety net during difficult times, while critics complain that generous systems can sometimes encourage dependence and reduce motivation. With technology and automation leading to ever greater levels of unemployment, some people now view a universal basic income as a realistic solution for the future. Financial help for single parents also divides opinion. Some taxpayers resent contributing toward children who are not their responsibility, whereas others believe supporting struggling families creates a healthier and more stable society overall. Attitudes toward homelessness are often equally complicated. Many people feel sympathy when seeing rough sleepers, although some insist that support services already exist and that homelessness is sometimes partly a personal choice. Those with private pensions and savings may resent those who were less careful or less fortunate in planning for retirement, and fail to understand how difficult life can be on a basic state pension. Yet most would still agree that we should not allow the elderly to suffer in poverty, isolation, or poor living conditions. Most people recognize the value of hard work and financial reward, yet still believe successful societies should care for their most vulnerable citizens. Many would argue that there is enough wealth to go around if everyone, especially the wealthiest individuals and companies, made their fair contribution.
Thank you to our celebrity guest speaker for another wonderful monologue. Well, that's about all we have time for this week. I hope you enjoyed that. I don't know if you heard any background noises there, but there are people digging a hole in the road this morning. And somebody rang on the doorbell to tell me that they have cut off the water. They didn't call to say that they are going to cut off the water, only to inform me that they have already cut off the water, which is not particularly useful. It would have been good if they had advised me earlier, which is a third conditional for you. Before we go, I just have to thank everybody who came to this session on Friday evening. We had a murder investigation, and it was a very profitable evening with one of these kits with lots of information in, and we had a lot of reading to do, but then a lot of discussion and a lot of analysis, and we had a lot of fun in the end. So I'll definitely be investing in another one of those kits for next trimester. So maybe around about December we'll be doing another murder investigation. So the topic for next week is going to be in the kitchen, which is going to be a lot about cooking, a little bit of diets maybe. So no doubt we'll have more fascinating conversations, and of course, if you're not in the meeting point, have a good week. Till next week.